Not all of us want some kind of cable between us and our internet service provider. In that case, you're going to have to go to some wireless technology, and you have a number of options available to you. Let's start with one of the most common. This is good old cellular WAN. Now keep in mind, cellular phones, when they were originally designed, they weren't designed for data at all. They were an analog device designed for voice. So in the 30 years or so that cell phones have been around, to move them into the world where they can move data as well as voice, there have been a huge number of technologies out there. And these technologies have all kinds of names like GSM or LTE, and as a result of that, the industry decided it was too complicated, and to be honest with you, they were right, to try to keep track of all these many different types of technologies. And in a marketing method, they began to create what they call generations. So, for example, GSM would be a popular form of what we would call 3G, whereas LTE would be a popular form of what we'd call 4G. These generations span some real speed differentials. Early 1G phones were passing data in the few hundreds of thousands of bits per second, whereas the latest phones are moving data in the many megabits per second range. So we've had a big change. Now, I can't tell you exactly all the different types because it would take forever and it's way outside the scope of A+. However, the A+ does hit on a couple of them, and I do want to talk about that in the world of 4G. In particular, two technologies, LTE and WiMAX. LTE and WiMAX are very similar technologies. Physically, you both have antennas that are sitting on cell towers. They both have roughly about a 30-mile range, 15 to 30 miles arguably. And they work just like any cellular phone. You're just moving around and it jumps from cell tower to cell tower, theoretically, without you even knowing it. The downside is that WiMAX, while it's an open standard, is really starting to fade away very quickly to LTE. LTE is a proprietary standard, pretty much in control by the phone companies more than anybody else, but it's a good standard and it works very well. The important thing is that you don't necessarily get to pick your technology. You pick your phone or your particular carrier, and then you happen to know what their technology is with that. So, for example, here with my iPhone, even though it says 4G, it's actually 3G, and, but that's just because it's connected to a 4G network. So you've got cellular WAN as one option. Now keep in mind, you don't just have a phone. For example, if I want to, I can buy a device from AT&T or Verizon that plugs into a PCMCIA or PC card slot or even a USB, just an antenna, and it acts as basically as a network card. Your next option, surprisingly, is 802.11. 802.11, most of us think about it as simply a technology where you have a wireless access point like this sitting in your office or in your home, but it can do a lot more than that. Anybody who's ever been to an airport and tried to get on a wireless network can appreciate that companies like AT&T and T-Mobile provide commercial 802.11 hotspots. And what they can do with this is they can actually set up a number of different wireless access points and create a single logon location, and allows you to go, say, to airports all over the country. You even see this in some cities in what we call a metropolitan area network. In that case, you have one organization, City of Philadelphia was one that did this, where you would log in, you'd have an account, and you could use 802.11 to log into any of the City of Philadelphia's wireless access points in the city. Now the last one I had a little bit of trouble bringing the equipment in, so I had to make one myself. How's that for a satellite? Satellite communication is, well, what it is. You have a satellite that's floating around the Earth in geosynchronous orbit, and as it's floating around, you have little antennas that are put on top of your building, and they create a connection to the internet. Satellite is, by definition, slower than just about any other technology, but satellite has one huge advantage over everybody else. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, you can always connect to satellite. So usually what you'll see with satellite is, here's my satellite and here's my dish, and there's usually a piece of coax that's running down into yet another box and plugs into an RJ45 and off it goes. Other than being slow and usually a little on the expensive side, satellite works really well. The one downside is that satellite has a nasty thing called latency. Latency is simply because of the distance from the satellite to the dish. You often get stops and skips in the record as pages are loading and that type of thing, and it's something to watch out for. So, if you want to unhook from your ISP and you want to go wireless, you've got a lot of great options. Make sure you know about all these different types of technologies. They're on the exam.